Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us now, Around the Region is hosting a federal candidates debate. Our guests are vying to represent you in the Vegreville-Wainwright riding. Candidates, let's give our viewers an idea of your platforms, and we'll start doing that by the questions. It's Mr. Leon Benoit's turn to respond first, and let's roll the question here from Jeff Mulligan.
I'm Jeff Mulligan, Mayor of City of Lloydminster. My question for all of you is, we have a stark divide by political party across this country. If you're elected, what will you do and what will your party do to bring that divide closer together and create a united and harmonious Canada?
Mr. Leon Benoit, you have the floor for 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, I think our government, led by Prime Minister Harper, has demonstrated very well that, in fact, we can work with other parties on separate issues as they're willing to do. And we've, as a result, had the longest minority government in history. And we, even this time, in spite of the unnecessary election, we've had still a good majority government, which has accomplished quite a bit. In terms of bringing all the parties together, there are some things you really don't want to bring the parties together on. One is taxes. All three opposition parties want to raise taxes. We don't think that's the right thing to do. We think that will kill jobs, hurt the economy, and lead to a real problem funding seniors' pensions, funding health care, funding the environment. So we're going to stay the course in terms of taxes. Our tough on crime agenda, where we think that you should focus on protecting society and giving victims rights instead of only protecting the rights of criminals. We want to rebalance the justice system. We will do that. We'll do it alone if we have to, and it seems like that's the case.
And let's move on to NDP candidate Raymond Stone. Go ahead.
Well, the NDP party certainly will make a big effort to work with all the other parties. Jack is a very good listener, and he's proven that in the past. Our present Conservative government are, they're not that good listeners, so sometimes they like to go it alone, and that's not good. But we would make an effort to listen to every party, bring them into a round table and discuss things and hammer things out. At the present time, that's not happening with our government, because our present government, I mean, they like to think that they were brought down by the budget, but that's not true. They were brought down, the opposition brought them down because they were in contempt of Parliament, and that's not good. That hasn't happened before in the history of Canada. So we are going to work together, and that's for sure. Thank you.
Let's move on to Green Party candidate Will Munsey. 60 seconds.
Well, that's exactly one of the things that is a Green Party issue, is that the tenor and the tone of the House of Parliament has become so rancorous that we can't get along. We simply hate the other guys because they're the other guys. And I think most Canadians really despise that. Listen, we have enough common ground in Canada. We have common ground over the environment. None of us wants to deplete the environment. We have common ground over wanting to support people with disabilities. There is lots of common ground. It's just we have become so hyper-partisan that my way or the highway, and particularly the current government, but also all three of the old parties, have always been like that. If you don't go my way, if you don't vote for the party line, you just don't get a vote. And that's where the Green Party is different. We stand for the old reform ideas of a free vote, more free votes in the House of Commons. And so those things, working with the other parties, are paramount to Green philosophy.
Let's move along here to Liberal candidate, Mr. Ron Williams. Go ahead.
Well, obviously, cooperation is the key. We're perfectly willing to cooperate with all of the parties in the House. We've indicated that. Mr. Harper has clearly indicated previously and in this campaign that he is not willing to cooperate. It is his way or the highway, and that is not the way you conduct a harmonious government for the best interests of the country. The wrong-headed policies of the Conservative Party are the cause of the lack of cooperation in the House. The rancorous, petty, personal attacks that have been coming from the government side are what undermines that spirit of cooperation and gives the bad impression that people receive when they watch the question period. So restore integrity, restore cooperation.
Thanks for your answers, candidates. Now the floor will be open for 30 seconds here. Whoever wants to rebuttal anyone else's answer can do so now. The clock starts.
We're not going to have silence, are we? Really, Parliament, for the most part, committees, and in most cases does work quite well together. And the round table that Mr. Stone is talking about, in fact, takes place in Parliament and at committees of the House of Commons and the Senate. So that does happen on most issues.
Tried to undermine.
The part that we see as a problem is when you have situations like the contempt issue, where we see opposition parties being totally irresponsible and finding government in contempt.
That was irresponsible.
I'm going to have to stop you right there. We're going to move on to the next question.
My name is Pat Tenney and I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. And my question to the candidates is, if you were to form the next government, how would you prepare Canadians to become educated and receive the skills necessary to fulfill the labor shortage that our businesses are going to experience over the next decade?
NDP candidate Ray Stone, it is your turn to take the floor.
Well, I think our government certainly is very concerned about education, and we would put more money into education. And in fact, we would start a national learning program for our young people, beginning at the kindergarten age, and follow that up. And we would make it happen. We would we'd follow through with how they're making out and so on, and we would continue to fund education. Right now we have classrooms that are overcrowded, and teachers that are overworked, and so we must go back and put a lot of money back into education, because after all, our kids are our future. And
we'll go on to Green Party candidate Will Munsey.
Well, first of all, if we woke up on May 3rd and we had a Green government, I'd probably die of shock. To be quite honest with you, but one or two members would certainly be a good thing. And one of the things that we see is that we're trending. Canadians have always been known as hewers of wood and carriers of water based on our resources. And we've built a country around that. But we all know that that's changing. We're in the information age. We have to start pushing in that direction. And one of the ways we push in that direction is we have a federal funding. The Green program has a federal funding for 15% increase in research for science research. And that gives people an opportunity to look ahead, find employment in the sciences, set goals. And all of us, here's one of the parts of common ground. All of us, each and every one thinks that early childhood development is very important in education. That's a place that we would be prepared to work with everybody on, cooperation.
Let's move on down the line here. Liberal candidate Ron Williams.
Yes, well, obviously, as we approach the 21st century, education is the key factor to lead in the world as technology overtakes what was manual labor. So obviously education has to be the center point. Now the Liberal has two planks. The long range would be the early childhood learning and care program, a national program across this country providing for early childhood learning and care. And then the Learning Passport, which would pay $4,000 or $6,000 to every high school graduate so that he could go on to secondary education. So that if you have the marks, you get the education. So those are the two main points of a Liberal program. Education is absolutely the key to the future, and we're there.
And we'll hear from Conservative candidate Leon Benoit about Pat Tenney's question about education for the future.
First of all, Pat, thank you very much for your question. It's an excellent question. In fact, of all the issues brought up in Lloydminster and Wainwright and this area is the issue of a shortage of people to do the work that is to be done, particularly related to the oil field and gas and that type of thing. It is a problem that is widespread. Look at the record, I think. Our record on that is really stellar, I believe. We have made student loans available for going to university or to technical schools or for any type of post-secondary training. Anyone who wants to get training can get it. We have flexible repayment of student loans. We have provided grants to low and medium income families, so that portion repayment isn't required. And we've also put in place special programs like the Red Seal funding, which anyone who signs up for a Red Seal program, which gives you criteria recognized across the country, get $1,000, complete the second year, another $1,000, complete the program, a $2,000 check. And that's incentive for young people to get involved in that.
Cut you off right there. Floor is open for rebuttals for 30 seconds. Start now.
You can see here just how nuanced these positions are. We can agree on much of this. one of the green platforms is make student loans prime and not pay more than the prime rate to the bank back, and also to extend the period after you graduate for 2 years, that loan is not having to be payable for 2 years. So it gives people a chance to establish themselves in the market.
I think it's important to look at the record. Like, we've actually done these things. We made the student loan program flexible, repayment flexible.
We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with more questions just after this break.